more. What would you like? They didn't say we have a lot of money. They just said, don't you need some more things? So, but that quickly changed. And then they began to, because the budget started getting tighter and tighter, and they've been getting tighter ever since.
What do you think the vision was?
For Green Bay?
Yeah, in those early days.
That it be this problem-centered, environmentally focused university that was going to make a name for itself nationwide. That was Widener's dream. I'm not sure that was Harrington's dream. I think he saw it mostly as a regional way, as a regional campus that would allow people to come, and it was more building the UW system than anything. And then, of course, it was all that conflict when the four-year the traditional four-year campuses and the other campuses came together. That took months, years to work that out. I just remember that was a big deal.
What did you hear of, or when did you first hear about the idea of merging state universities with the UW?
I don't remember that, Paul. I do remember that Dick Brown was the dean at Rhinelander, and this was an experimental campus in which they were combining technical school programs with university school programs. For instance, you'd have a class of people who are doing welding, and the welding, they were learning welding, part of the students, as a way to make a living in the industry, but the other students were doing welding as art. And so here were these two kinds of students in the same class, and I thought it was a terrific model.
That's great. I never heard about this. Tell me more. What year was this? And who was this guy, Brown?
It was Richard Brown. He had come from Whitewater, and that's how we knew him. And he was a dean of the campus, and somehow they had let him do this experiment with putting the technical school courses, I think because Rhinelander was sort of way up there, and there was an opportunity to get a technical school thing going, or maybe they had one to put together with the university kind of courses. So we used to go up there to see Dick and realize that they sort of ignored him, though, because the technical school people weren't that eager to have this new model, and neither were the university people. I mean, here you were combining these two systems. I used to go to meetings. There was a real concern for quite a while about the fact that non-credit courses were being proliferated everywhere, and that the technical school was doing some and the university was doing some, and that we really shouldn't duplicate, because the legislature was concerned. So they put together this committee, and we would meet endlessly, Paul, and we would say, okay, what are you doing? And then they would say, what are you doing? And then we'd all go home and keep on doing the same thing. I think I used to meet with the technical school people over on the other side of the river and talk about what we were doing. And almost never did we put programs together. It was just a game we played to keep the legislators happy because they knew we were talking. Can you believe that?
Yeah, well, there's all kinds of things in life that are unexpected.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah. So did you didn't think about the individuals, I had listed names, but maybe you want to watch that first because Fred Rizzer, you know, who's a...
Yes, Fred, yeah, here in Madison.
Yeah, did he have any involvement, do you know?
Not with Green Bay that I know of. He was the representative from this area, well, he still is, I guess. He's still in the legislature, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
And he was very supportive, of course, of things that the university wanted and the university budgets. But I don't know how much influence he has right now.
Well, what politicians did, if any, or did you just kind of not pay attention to that?
No, I'm sorry I didn't that much. I don't, let's see. Who was the guy that they called him Concrete Cleat.
Vanderbeer.
Yeah, Vanderbeer. He was instrumental in getting that highway system developed. I think that's why they called him Concrete Cleat. And, you know, it was, I think he and Widener must have talked often about how those roads could come to the campus easily. There's a whole history there, I'm sure. I don't know a lot about it, but have you run across that?
No, but I know that a lot of it was developed in the mid-'70s, and I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
The
So that,
I-43 controversy.
yeah, there was a lot of controversy about where those roads ought to be built. And in the beginning, there was controversy about the university being built way out, that people thought it should be more downtown. But, you know, after a while, it wasn't so far out.
Well, I remember when I first came here, I think UW-Oshkosh had a facility downtown, which I thought was...
Oh, did they?
Yeah, maybe that was later.
Were they offering courses?
I think it was part of the MBA program.
Oh, that could be. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
There was always competition, you know, to get students. Oshkosh wasn't hurting as much as we were, but there was so much pressure to build a student enrollment. And I think they estimated 20,000 in the beginning, and it got up, what is it now?
6,000.
Yeah, is it? So it never grew to what they projected it would be. But I think part of that, Paul, is that academic plan. I really liked the academic plan, but people didn't understand it. They didn't understand all those words, and that the requirements for LES, you know, those were good things for students. But it also, what I learned was that faculty got caught because most faculty build their reputation in a very narrow discipline. And when they were in a university where it was interdisciplinary and they were expected to really become more of a generalist and become interested in other areas. But that didn't enhance their credentials, so that if they wanted to move, that they'd look at the kinds of courses they'd done, which were interdisciplinary, and that didn't build their credentials to move. So I think that hurt us as far as keeping some faculty, which was too bad. Others were really totally committed to the plan, like Lee Schwartz and other people who were, and the environmentalists especially, Paul Sager and Thea Sager. So.
Your husband's a minister. Was he ever in the ecumenical center?
No. Dave Stephenson was the key person there. He could give you a lot of history too, Paul.
I didn't read him, yeah.
Have you met with him?
Yes.
Yeah, Dave was there.
He's the one who gave me your number. He said, you got to talk to Marge Engelman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he was there a long time, did a lot of good things. And Father Mothi, these names all come back.
Yeah.
But Ken was not involved with the Ecumenical Center. But that was kind of a...
But he had been a campus minister at other places?
No, he had been a traditional, had a church in all these different places. Then he was a conference bureaucrat for a while.
I don't know, was Methodist? Or?
Yeah, Methodist. And then he was a statewide person for a while, and then he was appointed here to the Madison Downtown Church.
Okay. Now you got some sort of historical footnote. First women's coordinator or something for a campus. I read something. To have someone who was assigned to that look out for women students.
Yeah, I didn't have the title women's coordinator. I guess we just did everything under the outreach. The outreach office kept growing, and we kept getting more responsibility. And we also did conferences. And
do you have anything to do with the start of women's studies on campus?
Not a lot, but just as encouraging people like Estelle Lauder and some other people there, lots of good people. So there were faculty women who worked mostly on that. I think I taught a course in women's studies once on older women. I taught it in child development or that discipline. So I wasn't really involved in it except to teach a class once.
Okay. What was your sense about how women faculty and staff felt at this new, I want to think about the late 60s, early 70s? Any way you can characterize them or describe dominant personalities or issues?
Yeah, we used to get together. What did we call that? There was a statewide women's coordinating council. Do you remember that? Kay Clarenbach, and then Dreyfus fired her when he became governor. She was coordinating things statewide for women. Catherine Clarenbach. She's not living now, but she was a powerhouse. I remember talking.
Any relationship to this state representative?
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah.
She was Dave's mother, Catherine, and she was one of the founders of the NOW organization for women with Betty Friedan, and there were a group of women who got together and founded NOW. And Catherine, Betty Friedan was sort of the idea person, and Catherine was both ideas and organization, because Betty Friedan was chaotic. I ran across her at a conference a few years ago, and she was so disorganized that I stayed with her and helped her get around. But I got interested in the women's movement partly because of Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, that had a powerful influence on me. Because I was married to a minister, Paul, and I had all these expectations about what Protestant ministers' wives were supposed to do. And I was restless. I think I had some smarts, and I'd been in school, and I really wanted to do something more. So when I read Betty Friedan's book, she sort of just opened the door and said, hey, I know how you feel. Go ahead and do some things for yourself. Otherwise, you were supposed to focus on your husband and your children. That wasn't all bad for a lot of women, but for me, I wanted to do something. I had 2 kids, too. And how old were they when I went back to work? The ministers' wives weren't supposed to work, so that was a trauma. When I first went back to work, the bishop's wife told me, if you don't quit what you're doing, your husband will go back to Podunk Center. Can you believe that? My husband was so irritated, he wrote a letter to the bishop and said, if you feel this way too, you can have my credentials, which was a pretty gutsy thing to do. Anyway, supposedly she was teasing, so we got...
Tell me more about this book, The Feminine Mystique. How did it affect you? Where were you at mentally, and what ideas did it introduce? Just that you could have a life?
Yeah, I remember we had a little cottage in Mount Morris outside of Wautoma, and I was sitting watching my kids play in the sand on this little lake, and I read these things about Betty Friedan saying, women have a lot of potential and a lot of abilities. Yes, you may have a family, but you may want to do more than this. And in a way, she made it more acceptable. She put into words, I think, a lot of what some women were thinking. I want to do more than just have an identity from my husband. You know, we were always Mrs. Kenneth Engelman. I was never Marge, or, you know, I was always seen as Ken's spouse. So wherever we went, I got recognition through him, but not because of who I was. It was a dramatic shift.
Yeah. On campus, this was social transition. You had old paradigm people and new paradigm. How was it on campus with the faculty and the staff people?
Oh, well, I can tell you these stories about when I got... Widener promoted me in a lot of ways. He brought me on to the Chancellor's Council early on because the women were saying, hey, we need some women's representation on this council. So that was kind of a privileged place, although I didn't feel I had a lot of influence. And there were all these, do you remember Warner Prangy?
Yes.
I mean, he'd say things to me like, Marge, I can just see you as an attractive broad, but I don't see you as an administrator. I mean, that was, he was probably just more outspoken than most people.
He wasn't saying it in jest?
No, he was not. Of course, Werner Prange grew up under, he was one of the brown shirts in Hitler's army, if you didn't know that. Yeah, he never talked about that. Well, that was the word. I assume it's true. He came from Germany. He was very loyal to Widener and to the campus.
How did he get connected, you know?
You know, I don't know. He and Widener were, Widener respected him, and in the early days they were trying to do this innovative campus thing, so Werner got charged with doing the all the electronic work, what was considered advanced work. Then you could project from the classroom, and you had all this equipment in the classroom. So Werner, that was sort of Werner's empire, and they also got the campus connected to the state radio network, because it was called WPNE. We used to call it Werner Prange's New Empire. Well, and then there were people like, there were other deans that I worked with, and one of those deans said to me, Paul, you know, I just don't know how to treat you. I'll just treat you like I treat my wife. You know, it was like they just didn't see women in taking responsibility and being in administrative roles, because they were so used to having us as secretaries or, you know, in lower positions. So some of that is in this paper. I really dealt with a lot of crap. And of course you weren't supposed to cry. And at that stage in my life, I cried pretty easily. So when I get frustrated, I just go to the bathroom and sit and cry, so I didn't cry in front of anybody. Anyway, that was part of the, it was, I used to say I felt like I walked a tightrope between being who I was as a woman with a lot of feelings and emotion, and still wanting to be an administrator and be respected in that role. So I always felt I was wobbling back and forth.
Check here. We're doing okay. Werner Prange, was he a tall man?
Yeah, sort of tall and robust, good-looking guy.
Of the same age as Werner?
He might have been a little bit, yeah, probably about the same age. At one point he was a vice chancellor, but then he took on the chancellor's role briefly. I don't remember what that was all about, but there were times when the administrators shifted roles a little bit, but it never.
What do you understand happened when campus opened 69 and in 70, number of the deans left, and they created what they called the super dean? And were you paying attention to this?
I remember that a number of people left, and I think it was conflict with Widener, but I don't have an inside track on that. I know Ray Velazquez left because I think Widener felt he wasn't doing what he wanted him to do.
Which was what?
He was vice chancellor for development and outreach, and I think he was very popular in the community, and that may have been a threat to Widener, because Widener was in a way, but not in the same way that Velazquez was. So, you know, there were a lot of subtle things going on, I think, that. And let's see, who else left?
Well, as Fred Sargent.
Yeah.
Did you know him at all?
Yeah, but I didn't know him well. I don't know why he left, but I know there were a number of people who left.
Oh, and then Fontera.
Yeah, but Fontera was a part of forming the LES program. Ia Corner, do you remember Ia Corner?
The name I never.
Yeah, Ia was. His background was in psychotherapy and counseling, I think, and he was the key person developed the LES program. And he couldn't, I think he was a very good counselor, but he couldn't get organized to develop that program and get it on paper. So there were these young bucks like, who's the guy you just mentioned?
Fontera.
Yeah, Fontera, Swinnerton, there were about 3 or 4 young men, Crandall, who tried to help him put that program together. Eventually, Widener took you out of that position, and I'm not sure who played the key role in developing LES then. The Hartleys, do you remember the Hartleys?
Oh, the name, yes. I think I actually met them. But
There were 2, Jean Hartley and Ruth. They were retired from some other place and came here to help this university get started. And Ruth was known as a specialist in child development, especially related to play. And she had developed a child development program and was very negative, Paul, about us developing a child care center. So,
where is that?
well, I think she thought it would detract from what she was doing. And I'm not a real, well, I'm assertive, but I tend to be kind. And she kept bugging me about how we shouldn't be doing that. And one day I ran into her and she was giving me this line, and I said to her, Ruth Hartley, you get off my back. We are going to have a child care center, and I don't give a damn what you think. And you know, she never bugged me after that. I think she needed me to just push back and say, get off of it. Gene was, what was his specialty? I guess it was counseling, and because I know he helped Ken with his dissertation. But they stayed around for quite a while. And then I think as they got older and older, they just... So there were some of those older people who came in. Sargent was older, too. Who else?
Were these people of any source or involved in controversy in the community? Were they immediately accepted? Or?
No, I don't think they were negative. I'm not sure how well the community knew those people.
You spent more time in the community than all these people coming in.
Yeah,
So,
I did a lot of speaking, Paul. I've been going through my speech files. It's incredible. And I was talking both about going back to school, encouraging people to come, and then also the women's movement. There's a lot of interest in what was going on in the women's movement. And
because you're up there agitating, getting people...
yeah, and you know, I don't know what was said behind my back, but I can remember going to men's clubs to talk about the women's movement, and all the questions I got, traditional, you know, negative.
Well, tell me, well, this is interesting now. What reaction would you get? And what would you make sure you mentioned to you know,
well,
jab them a little bit?
I would just try to tell them what it meant for women to be able to be a little freer and to do some of the things they wanted to do. And of course, they had all the questions about the bra burners, and they saw the feminist movement as radical. And I would say, I'm a feminist, but I don't consider myself radical. I just care about women and what's happening to them. So I'm trying to remember some of the comments I'd get. I'm not sure I can remember from speaking, but it was clear in a lot of groups that they were listening, but they weren't with me. But I saw it as a way to try to open up people's minds a little. I think the university had quite an impact on helping change attitudes toward women in the Green Bay area. I don't know.
Do you have any copies of audio recordings of your talks?
I don't have oral recordings. I did give you this one, the humanities lecture. It's really, I said I want to speak about this institution, UWGB, both as a sexist institution and as a non-sexist institution. And then I talk about what I mean by sexist. And then later on, I talk about what my dream is for the university. So I'll give you that one. And then this is another speech I gave in Dallas, Texas, about women and what was going on.
Did any local government agencies or corporations call you in for consulting for them about women?
Yeah, Kimberly Clark. I had some ties there with Kimberly Clark. because they began to offer courses within the industry.
About what?
There were also, what kind of courses? I don't think I remember. But our faculty were going to Kimberly-Clark. Faculty went to the reformatory. Have you heard about that? Yeah, you could get a 2-year degree if you were in the reformatory by taking courses. They were wonderful.